Welcome to this orientation session on farm safety. This orientation will cover such topics as a brief overview of the laws that govern health and safety in Nova Scotia, reporting requirements, WHMIS, and emergency responses. We'll also cover topics such as animal safety, first aid, personal protective equipment or PPE, working alone, fatigue management, and confined spaces. And now, if you're able to, let's meet your coworkers and management team. Let's have a look at what the law has to say about working safely on a Nova Scotian farm. Nova Scotia has an Occupational Health and Safety Act that is applicable to all workplaces across the province. There are also regulations that support this act, which we must follow as well. Most importantly, under this OHS Act, you have three fundamental rights when it comes to working safely on a farm or for an agribusiness. Taken directly from Section 2 of the Occupational Health and Safety Act, you have the right to know, the right to participate, and the right to refuse. Let's take a closer look at these rights. You have the right to be informed by your employer of all known or likely hazards on the farm or from any tasks or conditions related to the farm. Your employer must also provide you with the information, instructions, education, training, and supervision necessary to protect your health and safety. Finally, you have the right to refuse a task or job when you believe that the work will endanger your health and safety or that of your coworkers. With your right to participate, you can have input on the steps taken by your employer to ensure your health and safety and that of your coworkers. As we conclude our look at the law, let's examine the roles and responsibilities we all have while at work. The responsibilities of the employer fall under Section 13 of the Nova Scotia Occupational Health and Safety Act. Under that section, they are responsible for providing a safe and healthy workplace, establishing and maintaining a health and safety program, ensuring you and your coworkers are trained and or certified as required, and that all equipment, tools, and materials are available and in good condition. They also have to provide information which ties in with your right to know. Additionally, the employer is responsible for making sure that your work is supervised in a competent fashion and that you have access to first aid services. Finally, they must also report incidents and or injuries and cases of occupational disease to the appropriate supervisor or manager. Now, the supervisor also has responsibilities under the Occupational Health and Safety Act, and they can also be found in Section 13 since they are considered to be a part of the employer. As you can see, their responsibilities mirror those of the employer. A supervisor must also ensure a safe and healthy workplace, acquaint you with any hazard in connection with your work and or work area, and provide you with the information and instruction necessary to ensure your health and safety and that of your coworkers. Additionally, the supervisor is also expected to enforce the health and safety regulations, including those set by the farm. They are to correct any observed or reported unsafe acts and conditions, and just like the employer, the supervisor needs to make sure that all equipment, tools, and materials are in good condition and properly maintained before handing them over to you. Finally, they are also to promote health and safety awareness among you and your coworkers. And now we come to the rest of us, the employee. We also have certain responsibilities under the Occupational Health and Safety Act, and the first one is to always comply with that act and any of the regulations that support the act and that are applicable to the type of work we perform. As the employee, you are always to work in a manner that will ensure your safety and that of others. You need to report any and all hazards that you become aware of, including unsafe acts and conditions. You are to wear and or use protective equipment, consult and cooperate with your firm's joint occupational health and safety committee and or with any person responsible for the enforcement of the act or the regulations. This would typically be an OHS inspector. And where you can, you might want to consider joining your farm's joint occupational health and safety committee if they have one. This is a great opportunity to exercise your right to participate. Section 31 of the Occupational Health and Safety Act spells out the functions of a Joint Occupational Health and Safety Committee, otherwise known as a JOSH. A Farm Safety Committee can conduct the following. It can identify hazards through monthly inspections and or meetings. It can obtain relevant information from your employer. It can make recommendations for the improvement of occupational health and safety to your employer. It can also investigate work refusals and other significant occupational health and safety events, and it can also obtain information from the Department of Labor, Skills, and Immigration. Let's take a closer look now at reporting and how we should approach this important element. Reporting is simply effective communications. Management needs to know what is going on in order to make the right decisions. Therefore, reporting must be conducted for all incidents which happen at a farm, whether it involves animals, chemicals, machinery, vehicles, or in any other scenario which can or may cause an injury, fatality, sickness, or even property damage. Examples of what needs to be reported include, but are not limited to, employee action, such as unsafe acts, exposure to a harmful substance, such as blood, bodily fluids, or anything that might be airborne, and if you are hit or have something strike you, if you are bumped, or any other form of collision, these would have to be reported as well. Assaults or any form of harassment are simply not acceptable anywhere, ever. These would include anything physical, racial, sexual, or verbal in nature. Additionally, if you have a recurrence of a previous injury, this would also need to be reported to your supervisor or manager. And any actual or potential threat to your well-being or the well-being of others, or any accident involving vehicles, slips, trips, and falls, and any injuries or illnesses caused by animals, all of these scenarios should be reported to your management. And now we'll take a brief look at the WHMIS program, or the Workplace Hazardous Materials Information System. The WHMIS program is made up of three basic components: pictograms or hazard symbols, labels, either from the suppliers or from the workplace, and safety data sheets. These components together provide you with your right to know, and in this specific case, about hazardous materials found on your farm. The WHMIS program has been designed to provide you with knowledge about hazardous products used on your farm and how those hazards and subsequent precautions are effectively communicated to you and to your coworkers. An example of effective communication of information means that you would understand the WHMIS system in general, would know about the hazards of the products you work with, know and apply safe work practices as they relate to your jobs and tasks, and know what to do in an emergency situation. Let's consider first aid and how it plays an important role working on a farm. Best practice as it relates to first aid kits is that larger kits should be located at the main farm buildings or offices. Smaller kits should be kept on major pieces of farm equipment and in vehicles. The kits should be checked at least annually for expired products, and if you have expired products, they should be disposed of and replaced as soon as possible. In fact, anytime you use an item from a first aid kit, that item needs to be replaced immediately. And don't forget to change the batteries and flashlights to ensure that they're ready for use when you need them. Care should be taken for including personal information in first aid kits for individuals who have specific medical conditions, such as allergic reactions, diabetes, etc. Contact information for the family doctor of each employee working in the vicinity of the kit should also be established. And now, a word about PPE, or personal protective equipment. PPE is clothing or equipment designed to reduce your exposure to chemical, biological, and physical hazards on the farm. It is used to protect you when engineering and administrative controls are not feasible to reduce the risk to acceptable levels. And it's important to remember, PPE does not lessen the actual hazard in any way, so always make sure you are wearing the proper PPE and correctly to provide maximum protection. And if you're not sure, ask for help. As this graphic shows, examples of personal protective equipment include, but are not limited to, protection for your head, face, hearing, respiration, hands, leg, feet, and arms. Now let's take a look at some basic animal safety. Animals are found on many farms. Regardless of what type of animal it is, you must always know what you are doing when you're around them. Always ensure that an animal is aware of your approach so you do not frighten them. And always use special care when handling animals with newborn young. When working around animals, be sure to always have a clear exit that you can reach nearby. If you are required to wear personal protective equipment, then be sure you are wearing it correctly. And again, if you're not sure, always ask for help. And finally, here are some other hazards to consider when working on a farm. If you know that you'll be working alone at some point in your workday, make sure your employer has a working alone plan that can be put into use. All working alone plans basically contain some type of regular communications within a time frame where the start and end points are known in advance. Additionally, since working alone should be considered a hazard unto itself, a best practice is to have a one-day emergency first aid training in place for each worker that might be working alone. With fatigue being among the top 5 causes of worker incidents, fatigue management is an important part of a firm's health and safety program. Fatigue while on the job can be very dangerous for you and for others as well. Always ensure your equipment and tools are ready for use when you need them, and be sure as well that you are also ready. Confined spaces on the farm can pose a significant risk of injury and death. Hazards in confined spaces can result in fires, explosions, unconsciousness, asphyxiation, or even drowning. Never enter a confined space unless you have been properly trained and have the appropriate equipment and manpower. There are many benefits to working on a farm, not the least of which is working outside where fresh air and sunshine are abundant. Farm work is typically a good way to stay in shape and to use your body and your mind in a positive manner. But as with any job, hazards are also present, and we must always be on our guard to prevent them from harming us or our coworkers. Thank you very much for watching this farm safety orientation.